Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, it wasn't. Out of downtown.
Welcome to the NEPA Scene Podcast, the only local live streaming podcast of its kind. We're coming to you from the Accelerator building in downtown Wilkes-Barre. I'm Rich Howells, the founder and editor of NEPA Scene. And tonight we're here with Dan Kimbrough of Park Multimedia and Melissa Carestia. Made sure that we talked about this beforehand, so I would get that right. Of Wilkes University's Sordoni Art Gallery, two of the team members behind the 2022 Scranton Fringe Festival. So before this theatrical festival takes over 7 venues throughout downtown Scranton this Thursday, September 29th through Saturday, October 8th, we're going to talk about how they got involved with this massive event and their roles in making it happen, the importance of cultural platforms like this, their respective jobs and working with creative people, programming and exhibits, the new Taking Up Space Film Festival, showcasing the works of people of color during the Scranton Fringe, tackling difficult issues and starting conversations through art, and much, much more. So please stay tuned for the full hour. We would love to hear from you guys down in the comments below. So anything you want to talk about in terms of the Scranton Fringe Festival, anything about our two guests here that you want to know, make sure you leave those comments down below. We will get to them in just a little bit. Before we dive in, I would like to thank our sponsor special guest who's provided us with this great office space and the equipment and everything to make this podcast and our website possible. Special guest is a talent booking marketplace, making it easier for talented people to get discovered and booked. It was founded in 2017 by actor-comedian Damon Wayans Jr. alongside local entrepreneur Chris Jones. You can check them out at specialguestapp.com or download their app on iTunes or Google Play. They recently launched merchbooth.com, a free program to help artists and talent professionals create and sell merch online and in person at shows. Many local musicians are already using it right now, and so is NEPA Scene. So make sure you take a look. Support by going to merchbooth.com, pick up some shirts and some hoodies. Or if you are a local artist, a comedian, a musician, whatever kind of entertainer you may be, you can get a free account on merchbooth.com. So go and check that out. And we also have Parlor Beverages has provided us with the best fucking root beer out there now. They have root beer, birch beer, and butterscotch. That's their words, not mine. I know. And you can get these at many local grocery stores as well as online. So if you want it shipped directly to you, you can visit drinkparlor.com. Use promo code NEPA Scene for 10% off. They actually are going to do a very limited release of pumpkin root beer, which I'm very interested to try. And that is if I can get a hold of it. I guess I could use the promo code and go buy some and have it shipped to me. But that seems weird because it's like right here. You know, the Parlor guys are in the same building. So I'm hoping I could just kind of sneak upstairs and like steal one from under Josh Balls's desk or something. I don't know where he keeps this stuff, but hopefully we'll get to try some of that. But you can order it now on the website, and the promo code works towards that. So that'd be cool. Have you guys ever had a Parlor before?
Right before we started, I was talking about probably the best root beer float I've ever had was at Strange and Unusual, the Parlor root beer, and I got it in a bendy straw, and it was a great experience. It made me so happy. There was like so much joy in it.
See, there's so many great things you could do with this root beer. We tried giving some to Group before. He fell over though, so he's not. I don't know if he quite enjoyed it as much, but. Yeah, it's always good stuff. I enjoy it, and thank you to Parlor for being one of our sponsors. Before we get started into the nitty gritty of things, can you tell us a little bit about yourselves and what you do?
Hi, my name's Melissa. I am the assistant director at the Sordoni Art Gallery at Wilkes University. I've been in that position since the beginning of the summer in June. I love it there. I get to work with students. It's great to be back in an art gallery. I have a long history of arts administration. I used to work at the AFA Gallery in downtown Scranton and have been involved with Fringe since the very beginning. I was a venue manager in 2015 at the AFA, and then they invited me onto the board, and I've been part of it ever since. One of my favorite things is I really get to get to try things that I want to do. So for a couple of years, we had the Visual Fringe, which was a visual arts exhibition part of the festival. Last year, we changed it up a little bit since we were still operating, under glass with COVID. So I got to curate Queer Chronicles storytelling exhibition featuring queer artists, and that was amazing. It was that multimedia visual arts exhibition that I've envisioned for a very long time and was finally able to have the right platform and subject matter to do it in. And then we'll be doing more stuff in the future too.
Nice. That's awesome. How about you, Dan?
I'm Dan. I own Park Multimedia, which I've owned since 2007, I believe, right before I moved out here to Pennsylvania. And then I'm also doing a lot of DEI consulting work and trainings in the area as well as of late. I've been with Fringe 2018. Yeah, so I came on fall 2018 as the tech director. And so I help all the acts set up their tech needs, get the venues prepared ahead of time, train the tech managers and the venue managers if need be. And then when Fringe is happening, I'm just in Scranton. So if and when things go wrong, I'm there to help make sure the lights go back on.
Because inevitably something will.
Oh God, yes. Luckily, hopefully it's not all of them at once and they just happen one at a time so I can get to each of them. So
right before this, I was just talking to Connor O'Brien, who's one of the founders of the Fringe Festival, for those who don't know. And he pretty much said the exact same thing. He's like, I would love to be there tonight, but I am busy putting out fires of all kinds.
Yeah.
As we approach, opening night tomorrow. And I said, nope, I totally understand that. I totally get that, especially as somebody involved in the arts community.
Yeah, I feel like there is a certain point when you're involved in any kind of like arts admin capacity. You get to put firefighter on your resume because for real, that's so much part of like your day to day and what you do, no matter where you are or who you're with.
Yeah. It's always new fires too, things you didn't catch on fire.
Right.
And I wouldn't think of it as a volunteer firefighter, either. More as a you forced me into this firefighter.
Firefighter.
Yes.
Yeah.
You've pushed me directly into the fire.
I don't know why he sent us.
Well, you know what? I was going to ask this later on, but it ties into what we're talking about now. So in both of your professions, you work with a lot of creative people, a lot of artistic people. And I can relate to that, but there's some things that make that great, like that make that like, oh, this is why I want to do this. And there's other stuff that makes you want to pull your hair out, as you can see.
Yeah.
So, can we talk a little bit about like, what are those things that you enjoy about working with the creative side of people and with the artistic side of people?
I think the big thing is you get to see things through other people's lenses, but like other creative people's lenses. And so someone can be putting on a show and in your head, you've imagined that this is what the show is going to look like. And then you see their interpretation of it. You're like, I didn't even think that was possible, And so it's always fun, especially when working with creatives that like during the festival, like it is running around crazy and trying to keep what hair I do have left, which is none. But it's fun. Like when I get to pop into the shows and see what's actually going on. And even before and after the shows, when folks are getting ready or when they're sort of coming down off the high of performing and just having those sort of one-on-one conversations, like creatives are a whole different bunch. And once you sort of get past the veil that most creatives have up and you actually get to have a conversation, it's amazing just the things that are going on in their minds. And thinking that way normally, it's rare that you get a chance to talk to somebody like that. So when you put multiple creatives in a room where they can just sort of feed off of each other, it's always awesome. So
yeah, absolutely. I love those one-on-ones and getting the different perspective and talking about all of the things that you didn't even think were possible. But also like in addition to just like working with creatives, I love giving audience members arts experiences. Being able to let someone know that theater is for them, that the arts are for them, because like anyone who knows me knows I'm a broken record when it comes to this, but the arts are like it's our basic human communication. It's like the thing that makes us human. So people who don't think that arts are for them, it makes me so sad because before we learn how to write, we're scribbling and drawing. Before we know how to say words, we're singing and making noises. And it's just like this really, innate part of us that is important for people to recognize that it's for them too. So having people come into theaters, like over the summer with Sordoni, I've been working the farmers market doing kids crafts every week. And let me tell you, I never realized that I wanted to do kids crafts all day with children. It's amazing just to see them like make connections and like to like the way that they use the materials, and and you never know what kind of impact that has on someone. And because like all of us, oh my god, I'm so sorry, all of us have probably had an arts experience that brought us to where we are. If it's between, like, for me it's like picking up my parents' camera and taking pictures, and then also when I was in high school, seeing my friends in local bands run shows at venues and seeing my peers do that, and I was like, I want to do that. I want to give a platform to people for the arts. So it's nice to be able to do that with Fringe.
To look at the other side of that too, what are some of the challenges of working with creative people? I always hear the term herding cats, and that fits so well, I think, in a lot of ways. But has that been your experience, or how has that worked for you guys?
I don't think we should be promoting the festival. No, I'm joking. No, I think that you're right. There's a flip side. When you have people who are overly creative and thinking in their own mental space, and sometimes almost sort of boxed off in their own space because they need that to be creative, it can get difficult sometimes getting them to sort of see, I understand this is your world, but we all live in this bigger world. And for your world to continue to exist, I'm going to need you to move over here. And so I think those things are somewhat hard, but I'll argue anytime that I've ever had sort of a push and pull with a creative, there's usually been a solution of some sort, and it's some sort of compromise, but I think it's sometimes harder because they're there to do a show or performance or whatever it is, and they've worked it out for however long they've been planning it. This is the way it needs to be. And even the nature of Fringe is we're taking your, normal theater size stage show and putting you in a room that's, 200 square feet with an audience included and one light and one microphone and saying, go, and so there has to be some sort of compromise because you're not performing in a normal size space. And so I think Fringe helps teach that to both the tech and admin side and the artist. But I think in general, when working with artists, like, it can be very tough at times, but if the end goal is art, there is a solution usually.
Yeah, I agree. I think when push comes to shove, like, everyone is able to put aside their egos for like the greater good of the performance, of the festival, of, the exhibition, things like that. Yeah, artists are they're definitely interesting to deal with. And I think it is because, like Dan said, it's just like when you have a vision in mind for yourself, it's kind of hard to be able to put that to the side. But I think, especially with, I think, since the onset of COVID, and I feel this is like a very general thing too about like just people, like I feel like people have become like way more understanding, more like go with the flow with like different things of just like, a little bit more forgiving of like those like, day-to-day kind of hiccups that people have, which I feel is nice. And I hope that's one of the things that, as we're like hopefully coming out of the pandemic soon, that kind of sticks with us, that like people are just more nice.
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
It would be. I'm being optimistic about it.
Well, good. We need some optimism. So Dan, how did you get into photography and videography in the first place?
I don't know how I got into photography. My mom literally, old I am, the old 110 millimeter cameras, the real, like she always had cameras around the house. She was always taking photos. I'm convinced she still has film from those 110 millimeter cameras that have yet to be developed in a closet somewhere. I think I'm joking, but I'm really not. I think she does. Hi, Mom, if you're watching. But so like I was always around cameras in that aspect and like looking at the old photo books. And so as I got older, I eventually I would point and shoot cameras. I probably have more pictures of my high school friends than they would like me to have. Just because I was always the kid with a camera at everything in high school. And then when I got to college, originally went in to study psychology and chemistry because I wanted to be a psychiatrist. And then I realized chemistry wasn't fun. And switched to communications and art. Almost failed my first photography course that I took in college. And then from there, I was like, all right, I guess I'm doing this. Clearly, when you get a D in photography, that's the route you should go. It's worked since then. And then video was the funny one. I think they've changed the rules now, so this won't get me in trouble. When I was applying for grad school, I worked in radio and applied for a graduate assistantship. I had taken some video classes and done an internship at the local PBS station, but like never had really done video. And I applied for the radio assistantship, and somehow my information and the person who applied for the video one got switched. And so I ended up doing the video assistantship, which was teaching studio production. So very quickly I learned studio production, and from one of the other graduate assistants that was there, and sort of learned while I was doing it for video. But because of my photography background, and I like documentary, and the work in radio that I was doing was a lot of long form things of that nature, and more PBS and NPR style stories. And so the storytelling and all those things weren't hard for me to make the transition for. And I'm a tech person, and so picking up a camera and figuring out going from photo to video wasn't that hard in the long run. And I've been doing the dirty work ever since video. So though I have gotten into podcasting, so I have come back to the good side with audio. So yeah.
Nice. Now, Melissa, can you tell us a little bit about what goes into being a director or assistant director in an art gallery? What does that entail exactly?
Sure. A little bit of everything, I guess I would start with. Working day to day with students in a university setting. You don't always get that with galleries. But luckily at Wilkes we do, with Sordoni. Working with artists, installing exhibitions, working with the public, making sure people come in and they have a good time and they enjoy what they're seeing. We want to build those audiences so we get bigger arts communities and more galleries and more performing theater things and all of those fun things, because community over competition is very important. I also do grant writing. I work with our membership and building our volunteers. So just a lot of different administrative things that go into it that you wouldn't necessarily expect.
Right. Yeah.
Starting when I started at AFA, I didn't really know any of those things. So learning as I was working definitely helped me. I really enjoyed that I got to put my hands on everything, because I feel like that's helped me get all of those skills that I now have, and I get to share with, not only with my day-to-day job, but with Fringe and, the Alex Sealy Memorial Fund, things like that.
Well, I'm sure your experiences change depending on what the exhibit is or who the artist is and stuff like that. So I'm sure there's a little bit of learning curve each time.
It is. It's really great to get to learn absolutely everything about an artist and their medium and the work that they do, and then never talk about it again.
But you've probably got some cool factoids up there somewhere.
Absolutely. And I feel like, again, like being able to then like build that in the things that I know and know how to do and have reference point for that, the next time I see something similar, I'll be like, oh, I know that. It's like I took glass blowing in college because I thought it would be fun and interesting. And now, like, when I talk to sculptors who work in glass, I can be like, I know those things that you're talking about because I have built a foundation. So the same thing with when we're, meeting new artists. The show that we have up at Sordoni right now has to do with the neuroscience behind memory making. So like learning all about that and reading the conversations that the artist has had with different psychiatrists and neuroscientists and things like that. Really interesting stuff that I am now happy that I know about. Will I use it again? Probably not. But I have it, and it like makes an interesting story.
Good for maybe just some Jeopardy questions in there at some maybe point. You never know.
My brother, he actually applied to be on Jeopardy once, and he made it through like the first round, but then didn't get selected. So
Okay.
he's the smart one.
Maybe someday. You never know. Well, Dan, I'm sure it works the same way for you, depending on what you're covering, what you're, what event you're doing and stuff. Your skill set kind of has to change constantly.
Yeah. It's probably one of the hardest parts of the day sometimes. I moved here to teach originally, so I'm still adjunct teaching, and so going from sometimes in the classroom and working with students who I'm trying to literally teach the basics and the foundations to then turning around an hour later and being on a shoot somewhere, and then depending on what that shoot requires, I have one client that 2 weeks ago we were up in Susquehanna County and I was shooting video for them and talking with the father there about the lighting and this and that, and like, oh, can we do the candid photos today? And I was like, I didn't bring the right equipment for that. Like, you said we were shooting video, so I have my video lights.
Right.
I can come back in a couple of weeks and then bring the flash. And so like it is depending on what the medium. So if I'm shooting video or photo, or if I'm doing something documentary versus more of a sit down interview, the skill set changes. And so it's one of those. I think if you work in the media aspect of it, especially nowadays, you have to know so many things and you pick a lot of it up as you go, but being able to make that switch depending on what's going on. But then at the same time, some of the things that I've got to do, like this past fall, we did, I was working with Leadership Northeast and we did their 40th anniversary video, and getting to hear from community members about like the impact that leadership had, but just those stories. And that's one of the things that I love about working in media is that being on the other side of the camera, I get to hear a lot of these stories. And so putting narratives together and things like that are awesome. But the one-on-one, when you learn something new after an interview. I know I did a family history once, and the woman who I was talking with was talking about how it was hard raising their kids because her husband worked during the day and she worked at night at the bank. And I was like, what did you do at night during the bank? And she goes, that shows you my age. How do you think your account was updated the next day? Yeah. Like she would go in at like 6 o'clock, and it was all ladies usually, but they would go in and they would go through the deposits for the day and make sure things lined up with the account and work from like 6 to 11 o'clock at night.
Wow.
That sounds awful.
Right? That was a job. Like, and it's a job that literally doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
Of computers, but like hearing her tell this, and like, I'm supposed to be paying attention to all these things. Wait, you did what? Someone actually did that by like hearing those stories, like that you don't get to hear often. And again, it's a fun thing that you get to make connections with people or groups of individuals, and you may never see them again or ever have to talk about that again. But for that one little weird crystallized moment in time, there was a connection there. So
yeah, I mean, as a journalist, and I was a newspaper reporter for a while too, like very similar sort of things where you meet somebody and you find out some. It's all looking, I mean, as I can see it right now, it looks okay.
If you turn off the computer, you lose the stream.
Yeah, you're going to lose the stream if you turn it off.
You have power. Is there click in one of the click in all four corners of the screen real quick?
I like that we get to see Dan.
Right? Literally troubleshooting what we were just talking about.
So nothing came up? No, when some Macs have hotspots where like it'll put the screen to sleep, huh? Oh, I have no clue then. I don't speak PC. Same. But you have power because I'm looking at the back of the screen and the Ethernet power, the switch is on. Is that an all-in-one? Well, hold on. Right now, you're on.
And it's still working.
You're live and you're on the 2-shot right now.
All right. Fair enough.
Yeah. Audio still works as well. So
apologies for that.
Apologies, or is everyone happy to see Dan in action?
The worst part is I heard him clicking for a while, and I'm like, don't get up and try to fix it. Don't get up and try and fix
So
it.
these are those fires that we were talking about.
This is them. This is that.
You know, we're
It's probably just because we're here.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So just imagine the meme with the dog at the coffee and the fires all around him, and he's like, "This is fine.
Everything's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Everything's fine.
So yeah, we're just gonna keep going like everything's fine." So what is it that got you interested in being part of the Scranton Fringe Festival? How did you get involved with this?
So, like I said, 2015 was our first festival, and I was the venue manager working at AFA. Connor O'Brien had come onto the AFA board like right before the festival, so Connor and I started our professional relationship then, and it just sounded like a really cool thing to have in the town, because we need more arts.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I know.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Rich.
I'm listening.
But yeah, so
I'm
I
listening.
think just one more arts festival, one more performing arts thing to have was a good idea. And it was really great. The first Fringe was the old AFA Gallery at 514 Lackawanna had 2 stories. So the second floor was the performance space, and we had some just like really weird and cool shows.
I remember seeing some really cool stuff
We
there.
had Bunny Bunny, which was the story about Glinda Reinhardt from SNL, and like so good. That was so good, and I really enjoyed the Dias Connor Wiggins play, which was just like so weird, and I didn't know what to expect because like the first day that they showed up, they all had like these super like 70s like garb on, and I'm just like, what are we doing? And I feel like that's it. Like every year, it's just like, oh, what are we doing? And that's like the thing that gets me excited and like super pumped. So like this year we have like really cool shows going on that I'm so excited for. Like we have a mini opera about like Puritan New England, and we have the Vole Sisters, which is going to be like an improv like seance of Harry Houdini time kind of stuff. That's gonna be really cool. So it's always like there's something interesting, and that's what I think keeps me interested in Fringe too. Because like we talked about a little bit before, this is our 8th year as an organization, and like it's always still fresh, it's always still fun, it's always still like interesting.
Agreed. 2018, I left teaching full time and foolishly made a post saying that if anybody needed help or had any opportunities, let me know. And Connor called. And I've been with Fringe ever since. Is what happened. But no, I was never a theater kid, but I was always the tech kid growing up. And so even in middle school, like before and after band performances, like I was the one at the auditorium helping everything get set up and setting up stuff. And so I've done a lot of behind the scenes work before. And then when Connor called, it seemed interesting and was fun. And I met Connor a few years before at NEPA Blog Con of all things, which seems crazy that that's so old now. But I'd met Connor. You remember Blog Con? Yeah. That's how I met Connor.
Sorry.
No, I know. Every time I think about it, I'm like, wow. But that's where I originally met Connor. I think that was I think Connor was there promoting the first year of Scranton Fringe. And so I knew of it, and I knew it existed. And then when the opportunity came up, I was like, sure, why not? I like tech and doing those things. And so I jumped in, and I've been there ever since. So yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah, we became lifers.
Yeah. I don't think we're allowed to leave it if we wanted to.
But we don't want to because
we don't want
so
to.
So this is the first full festival in like 3 years, right? Because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a big comeback for the Scranton Fringe and what I'm sure was envisioned originally. But I thought it was so cool the way that the festival adapted over the last couple of years. They did the Fringe Under Glass thing. Did you guys work on that at all, or were you part of that?
Yeah, that was That was it was so good. It was such a nice thing to come out of, like, honestly, like, because we had gotten in all of our applications. We had started, planning out this, because, like, it takes a while to plan out, like, when you have, like, 30 some odd shows and figuring out what venues you're gonna use. Like, there's, like, a lot of stuff that goes into it. And just, like, we had gotten in a bunch of interesting things, and it was just like, all right, we can't do anything. Okay, well, maybe we can do something. Can we do virtual? Can we, do something outdoors? And this came about, I think it was a conversation that, like, Connor, Liz, myself, and Camille Reinecke had about this idea of, like, well, what if we take performers and put them in storefronts and kind of, like, have that barrier between them, and then being able to use the silent disco technology, which we're having a silent disco this year at Fringe, which is going to be so good. But being able to, like, use that new technology that we had just purchased for other things, and being able to, like, meld it all together and, like, give people these little vignettes, these, like, 15-minute performances. We're like, all right, this might be good. People might like this. And if they don't like it, we're paying artists to perform because as, again, all of us in the arts know, like, artists were hit really hard during COVID of not being able to perform, not being able to do the thing that, was their livelihood.
Sure.
So a way to even if no one showed up, we were able to pay people to perform, which was super important. It has always been, like, kind of one of our central ideals of Fringe is, like, paying people for their work, because we think it's super important. You don't want people to work for free.
And it's already a challenge to get people to come out for anything, even if it's something great. So then you have COVID on top of it there, so, but I did still see some crowds at those shows.
We kept it small on purpose. We had limited tickets. We did groups of 10, everyone, masks and things, which, this year at this festival, we're going to keep that up. We're going to keep masks, just because, theater especially was hit so hard that we don't want to risk it. But having people, like, find something that they were excited about, I thought it was really great, because it gave people that little glimmer of, like, things aren't all bad.
Right.
Things are okay. And gave us a little bit of normalcy. And I also feel like that was the year we had the least amount of fires. Yeah. It was so good. It was amazing.
Amazing 2 years.
So we're gonna
yes,
knock on wood, keep that rolling this year. But yeah, I think one of my favorite Fringe moments was after the second Fringe on Glass last year. And, like, we all ordered, like, Thai takeout, and we're sitting outside eating together. And we're all, like, looking at each other. We're like, are we good at this now?
Yeah. Like,
are we good? Do we know what we're doing?
Nothing broke. I think we surpassed that level finally.
So that was a very nice realization too, of just, feeling so comfortable with, we know our audience, we know our performers, we know our limitations. Yes, I think that was like a lot of growing pains with, like, any arts organization or any organization really. Finding what your strengths are and being able to, like, really play to them, and, like, knowing things that don't work, because we've tried them and we will never do them again. So right, Dan?
Oh my God. Well, and coming in 3 years late, there's a lot of the other stuff that, like, I didn't get a chance to witness, but in the 2 years of doing the traditional version of Fringe, like, it's hell on earth sometimes.
You missed the 2 a.m. crying sessions during the first Fringe. That was fun.
None of those. Like, by the time it got to me, it felt refined because they had suffered for 3 years already. That was the crazy thing, was after year 2, things made sense. And then I get the phone call from Connor, hey, so we're doing this Fringe under glass this year. What? We just need to make sure that they can hear us on the sidewalk. We have the silent headphones, but you just have to figure out how to get the audio out to everyone else. Right. So it was easier that year, because once I figured out one venue, it was like, all right, just replicate this for the rest of them. But it was after 2 years of finally understanding sort of the normal Fringe. And so for me, this is going to be a weird sort of throwback to, all right, roll out the floors, put up the lights, relearn all the light boards and all those things. And so it'll be fun. But we'll get through it.
Yeah, I'm excited and nervous. Like I haven't worked a box office since 2019's Fringe.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I'm so pumped though.
Yeah,
it's gonna be so good.
It'll be fun.
So there's 7 different venues, and one that stood out to me right away too is the pole dancing fitness. So I'm like,
yes, High Priestess pole. I'm so excited.
Like that's so cool, and it's great that we have that to begin with. Like that's just awesome that exists in Scranton. But to put on a show at something like that, I think is going to be a lot of fun for people. I'm
so excited. So like Ashley Matthews and her whole crew have been great. They're gonna have a show. So I think it's October 8th is when their show is. That's one of the ones I'm super excited about. And then just like them opening up their space to us. That's also been a very interesting thing throughout the lifetime of Fringe, of like the small businesses that kind of like just believe in us. And they're like, yeah, you guys can just have a key and do whatever you want. And we trust you and it's fine. And it's so weird, but it's like really great community building. And like, so my partner and I like to joke when like we go places, like we were just in Cleveland. We look at how the like arts and cultures are laid out in the town and kind of like how tourism is marketed and things like that. And I think it's just because we both kind of have marketing backgrounds that's like how our brains work.
Yeah.
So looking at the buy-in of the communities of different places, like such as like Cleveland or Savannah, is like super important. I think that's something that I really like about Fringe too, is like you can see people buy into us and be like, no, like we recognize that this is going to be something that's going to not only help us, help our city at large. The Americans for the Arts, the last big study that they did, the Arts and Prosperity 5, I believe, they found that after paying your ticket price, people spent on average $34 in the local economy in addition to their arts tickets. So that's parking, that's childcare, that's going out to dinner, that's having drinks after the show, that's buying a souvenir, things like that. So like those little things push our economy, and the arts are such a viable part of the the gross domestic product that like people don't realize that like arts are the economy too,
right?
So I think that's why people are like High Priestess Pole are so willing to open their doors to us and like work with us, because they realize that it's going to benefit them as much as it's going to benefit us.
Well, and that plays into something I wanted to bring up, the importance of having a kind of a cultural festival like this in a city like Scranton, because I think people might think of traditional things like if you ask the average person, oh well, if we had a music festival here, yeah, that's great, or we have a carnival here. When you say something like Fringe Festival, they're like, wait, what is that? Why? And why is that here? And that sort of thing. And it's like,
oh my God.
Yeah, like what does that mean? So then, how do you kind of address that to the general public and maybe, get them to, buy into this whole thing?
It's funny. So I came on in 2018, and I still argue for the first 3 years I didn't know what Fringe Festival was either. Like seriously, like people are like, so what is Fringe? And I'm like, it's a festival. It's an art festival. There's art, there's shows.
Okay.
I don't know why it's called Fringe. But that's where I operated from. Like I turned the lights on and I'd make sure they go turn off at the end of the day. So I had no clue. But this year I got to go to the World Fringe Congress. It was held in Orlando. And Liz and Connor couldn't make it. So I was the next call to see if I would be able to make it down there. And it was nice going because I got to hear from other fringes what a Fringe festival was. And the big takeaway for me was that it's whatever your city needs. Like every Fringe festival is truly different. And like you look at the Edinburgh or Adeline or these bigger ones, and they're putting on 300-400 shows over a month.
Wow.
And I hear that and I'm just like, there's no way in hell. Like no, like cut half the shows out, get rid of these, but for those cities and areas that works. I don't think Scranton wants that many shows over a month, let alone we can put it off. But that's the fun thing, is that Scranton Fringe is a very different fringe than Rochester, than Elgin, than Albany, than Philly. Like they're all different. And so now when I get, what is a fringe festival? It's just a cool artistic festival for things that are sort of on the outside. But outside of that, it's whatever your city needs. Because every city's fringe festivals, and there may be a city where a lot of the shows are a wee bit more mainstream and what you would expect to go see, but that's what works at that location, where then you'll get somewhere else and everything is off the wall batshit crazy. And that's fine for them. And so I'd say to anyone, what's a fringe festival? You need to come see it. Like it's a festival. There are going to be some things that are going to blow your mind, some that you're going to expect to see, and some things you're going to wonder why the hell we put that on. But you need to come see it. And once you do, I think then you have an understanding of what it is. I don't think it's something that can be explained because it's varies so much depending on where you are.
For sure. So one of the things we definitely want to talk about is the new element to the festival this year, the Taking Up Space Film Festival. And that showcases the works of Black, Indigenous, and persons of color. So how did that come about? And talk about how you chose the films that are showcased.
So Connor called me.
That's a reoccurring theme.
Yes.
No, Connor, Liz, and I had talked, I think for the past 2 or 3 years, about finding a way of doing something BIPOC related in the festival. And we've had an increase, at least since I've been there. I think the last year we were in person, 2009, Meals on Wheel and Space at Olive, that venue was dedicated to BIPOC artists. And so and Black Scranton sort of co-sponsored that as well with us. And so there's always been this push with Fringe of highlighting art. We're already doing Fringe work, but then saying we want to make sure that we're being inclusive though. And so how do we do that? And so we had talked, and there was a talk of a podcast for a while, or finding different ways of doing things. And then Connor called and was like, hey, what if we did a film festival? Could you take that on? If we sort of handed you that and said, go with that, and thought about it and was like, yeah. And I've worked, the Broadcast Education Association I was a part of when I was teaching full time, and in the documentary division, I helped chair that film festival for years. And so I had some work doing it and pulling it together. So I sort of knew what I was doing. And then we decided to work with Film Freeway. So luckily everything was just done online. So that's the nice part. I remember doing things when people had to send physical DVDs and tapes, and that was a hellish era.
Oh yeah.
Hellish era. And so, no, but it was all done online. We had 10 films submitted this year, which exceeded what I thought we were going to get. And they ranged all over the place. And so there's some talking that are looking at sort of suicide in different communities. We have one that's looking at the idea of online dating as a person of color, and how much do you give or hold back when you're sort of in that situation. We had 2 longer form ones that'll be seen digitally. One looked at the idea of urban renewal and sort of the lie that was when it came to moving minorities, communities of color out of different cities. And then another one that looks at the Living Theater and one of their sort of historic members and sort of the work that they did in the theater world, and sort of all over the place. And so, but it was awesome. And so we took the films, went through, judged them all on whether or not we thought they should be shown at the festival, and then whether or not they were award worthy. And luckily on my end, all the judges, there was one film that everyone said should win an award. So that made it a lot easier.
Oh, wow.
And so, so that one won. And so, but yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. We're doing, I said, 7 films will be shown in the sort of festival rundown. And then if you do the digital, you'll get the 2 longer ones as well. Everyone gets the digital when you buy the ticket for it. So you can watch the longer one on the line. So, but it's runs about an hour and a half. And there's 7 different films. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Now, are they all from all over the place?
Yeah, so they're all U.S. based. One of the directors is an Iranian director. We've got 2 or 3 Hispanic or Latinx directors, and I believe the rest. We have 1 Asian director, and then the rest of them are African American directors. And so, but they come from all over the U.S. And some of the films, that was the cool thing. The focus wasn't so much a BIPOC narrative; they were just telling a story. Which was awesome. In that we got some of those where it wasn't about so much the what we were going for with the festival. It was, here's the chance to elevate someone who's just telling a story, who may feel lost in other film festivals and other things, being a person of color, trying to get their message out there. So, but yeah, they're all from all over the U.S. Honestly, I don't think there's any from NEPA, which was a little weird as well.
So maybe something for the future.
Yes, NEPA filmmakers in the future. We'd like to see your films as well.
Yeah.
So get working by the time another year rolls around. There's seems to be kind of a lot of debate these days about what people want in their entertainment. There's the people who want to, and I hate when people say this, I want to turn my brain off and just watch something to kind of escape the real world, which I understand to an extent. And there are others who want to see something deeper, or something that kind of reflects the world that we live in, and maybe ask some questions. Where are you in that? What do you look for in your entertainment? And what's I think there's a place for both, but where are you guys at with that?
I think it depends on the day. There are some days where it's just like, really busy at work, and then like driving home, and then I'm just like, I don't want to pay attention to anything. Just give me something mindless that I can just watch. But then, other times I like really like heady sci-fi that makes you think, and, that I'm still asking questions about like a year after, seeing the movie. I'm just like, what do you think Matthew McConaughey like was really doing during, whatever, during that movie that I'm now blanking on, that I'm like,
which one?
The one where he's like an astronaut, and then Interstellar. Yeah, it was so good. And like, I don't know, there's so many things that I like still think about with things like that. So I think it kind of depends, but mostly the things that you have to think about.
Yeah, I'm the same. It's funny, working in media, I don't consume a whole lot of it. But usually when I do, it's something that I have to stop and sort of think about. But I am the same. There are days where I just want background noise or something. Like I love Marvel in general. I grew up as a comic book kid, but I love those because that's something it doesn't matter at the end of the day.
Sure.
Like,
yeah.
When the show is over, the movie is done, I'm done with it. Like nothing more else that I need to worry. So like that's my go-to for sort of mindless things, or sci-fi sometimes as well, not the heavier stuff. But then I'm a big documentary fan. So It's one of those, like if I'm going to sit down, if I'm going to actually watch something, it's usually to consume it so that I'm thinking about it, or the polar opposite where I don't want to think about this when it's done. I'm probably not going to think about it while it's happening.
Well, I feel like something like this film festival could lead to maybe some of those conversations that we kind of need. And I feel like the arts is a great place to start for things like that, because people feel intimidated by those types of topics, and they don't want to say the wrong thing, or they don't want to come in with the wrong perspective. So I think that kind of stuff, especially hearing those kinds of stories that aren't told all the time, you're able to kind of see another side of things and maybe think about it in a way that you hadn't before, which I think is going to be great.
Absolutely. That's like the whole idea of the arts in general. Like that's
true.
That's it. It's to give people that kind of that safe space to have those harder discussions of things that they may never have thought about before, in kind of like a fail-safe way, because at the end of the day, we're living in a postmodern world where everything is really up to the audience interpretation of it. So being able to engage with those different conversations.
Well, I think the important thing you said there was really it's up to the audience's interpretation. And one of the things that I like, looking at the film festival specifically, is that we're so used to consuming one kind of media from one lens. And so if you leave the audience to interpret, but they're only interpreting it from one viewpoint, there really isn't much to interpret. And so I think that one of the nice things about the festival is that some of the shows it's just a regular story, but the lens is different. And so that's what you'll notice, that there's a difference in sort of how the story has meaning because it's from a director of color.
Right.
And so I think that helps that interpretation, because if you're used to only watching, true crime from one lens and you see it from a different lens, you are the audience, but that adds to the diversity of how you're thinking about it and may change narratives and allow you to see things differently with a few more colors. And so I think and with Fringe overall as well, I think that's one of the nice things, is that a lot of these shows are things that wouldn't normally be on a stage somewhere, or they're very early on in the development of it. And, think of comedians, like they go to small rooms and play and tell all their bad jokes to figure out what the good ones are. And then you see them later on. And Fringe works in that manner where you can sort of work work out a lot of the things in your show, but at least the audience gets to see it. The artist gets to put something on, and it allows us to sort of see things through very different lenses. So
yeah, absolutely. I think that's like, one of the things that I think a Fringe success story that a lot of people have been talking about recently is Fleabag.
Yeah.
That was an Edinburgh Fringe show.
Wow.
That's where it got picked up.
Huh.
So I think having, like you said, giving a platform for these artists to try things out, to try weird things, and see what kind of grows and develop from there is so important.
Yeah. And I think also it's probably one of the disgusting parts of art, but like everything needs to be credentialed. Like you need to have won something or be seen somewhere before people give you a lot of credibility. And so, with the film festival and with Fringe overall, like your show was picked up by someone. Like it checks a box for you that now you have credibility, which is, again, it's one of the disgusting parts. Like you're an artist, that's all the credibility you need. But in the bigger picture, now you've won something or you've been submitted. And so like that was one of the nice things, was creating the laurels for the film festival to send to the ones that were selected. Like your film was selected for a film festival.
Yeah.
Like you get to say that going forward. And even if they don't come here and do anything at the festival because they can't because of the distance or whatever, but like they have that to take with them. But also like that's that Fringe stamp on there as well. Like we've done something, we've helped someone out. So
yeah. And I would love to see just more of those types of discussions happen, locally at all. I feel like there's not enough people of color representation in local media. There's just
a whole different conversation.
Yeah. I mean, we won't dive totally into that because that's a whole other podcast.
We'll be here all day.
That I'd be more than happy to have. I think that's a good discussion. I had Glynis from Black Scranton on a couple of years ago. I'd love to have her on again sometime to kind of catch up, because with the new facility that they have and everything like that, that's great. But that was just kind of scratching the surface of that kind of stuff. And the work that they've been doing over there is great too. You've been involved with that as well, right? Some of that stuff over there?
I pop up and take photos.
I was going to say I've seen your photos of some of their events and things. So
yeah.
Dan does his damn thing.
Take photos. So,
it was like that gala.
Yep. They had the gala this April, which was an amazing event.
Yeah.
And then I'm working with Linus, trying to become a board member. So I'll be doing more with him here soon. So
nice.
Yeah.
Something to look out for. So let's get into maybe some other interesting highlights, things at the Fringe. You brought some guides.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love one. So let me we'll flip through here real fast, and anything you guys want to know about, make sure you leave those questions.
My favorite thing is on page 5. We have this neat little like timetabled breakdown of the whole festival. So by venue, by date, by time, and then the show. This is something that we started in, I want to say it was like 2016. It was like the second guide we decided we needed something like this. And like this is literally my favorite page, because this is where I highlight not only where I'm working, but then also like, oh, I have time. I can either, eat dinner or see a show, and then I see a show, and then
of course,
I don't eat dinner.
Right.
So that's a really fun thing that we have, that it's so easy to, be able to plan out your weekend. And then we also have them listed by venue, throughout like this is all of our special events that we have popping up. So like the history of Fringe and cocktails, which is also going to be at the High Priestess Pole Studio, which will be really fun and interesting. And then Dan's going to be on the panel for the Jane Jacobs site specific panel, which is going to be a virtual event. So we're keeping some virtual events to, make the festival accessible for people who, might not be able to come to Scranton.
Sure.
We've had traveling artists from all different parts of the world, who keep in touch with us, which is really nice.
That's cool.
Weird but nice.
Weird but nice. And then like we're live streaming some shows, right? Are we? Am I lying?
He's just learning about this now.
I mean, we can, but no one said anything to me about it yet.
Okay, never mind. Maybe this was a conversation that died. I'm sorry. Connor, you shouldn't have sent me here. Sorry.
Connor, send me a message. Are we live streaming?
I don't think so. Maybe I'm thinking about Mr. Burns.
Maybe, yes. That was live streaming.
About that.
Okay, all right.
Okay, I'm sorry. We're not doing that. And then the silent disco. I'm really excited about the silent disco.
Great pivot. Great pivot.
Oh my God.
I mean, you have your more I don't know, say traditional in the sense of Romeo and Juliet.
Absolutely, which is going to be great.
I don't think I'd call it traditional, but
because I feel like that's the best thing about Shakespeare is like you can always
it's
tell it through a
their
modern
own
lens.
interpretation
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
I love it.
And it's gaslight theater, and they always do a great job.
Mhm.
So it's going to be
High
a little
quality.
different. It's not
yep.
going to be exactly what you expect going in. Ladies of the 80s. That sounds interesting.
That's gonna be fun. There is literally something for everyone with this. We have improv.
Mhm.
We have very serious like one person shows that are about like really, them overcoming things like what's it called? The Tomatoes Tried to Kill Me.
Yes. That's the name of the show. She's not lying.
Yeah. Hold on, let me make sure I have the full. Tomatoes Tried to Kill Me, but Banjo Saved My Life. So we're gonna do a special performance over at the Gino Murley Center for the veterans.
Oh,
with
that's great.
Yeah, there's just
Yeah.
so much.
And then there's the main silent disco, but there's also a kid silent disco.
Yeah,
that we're
so
doing in the
doing-
afternoon as well. Yeah, and so literally something for everybody, every age range.
And you can make your own puppet. There's a workshop for that. So
Yeah,
it's
and-
all ages, but
and all the children's programming at the library is free too. So
so it'll be a bunch of little kids and me
yeah,
putting a
make
puppet
the
together.
puppet, and then
Yeah.
you bring it to the disco, and then you dance with your puppet.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah.
There
That's
you
gonna be
go.
awesome.
Performance piece.
We're
Even
live streaming that.
a youth open mic, which I think is great too, because I get a lot of I actually did a youth open mic for a little bit at Adezo, and it was well received, and maybe we'll get back to that at some point. Obviously, COVID gets in the way and stuff, because our open mic is kind of as 21 and over.
Yep.
We can get the 18 to 20 in there as long as they bring a parent and they have ID and the whole
Yeah.
9 yards and stuff. They got to go through a process, but with this, people can show if you're 8 through 14, so that's cool.
Yeah, that's gonna be really great because again, like giving people platforms, you don't know what that's gonna do for those kids that are going to perform. You don't know how that's going to affect them
For sure.
to help them, fully develop a career into performing whatever they may be doing, if they're musicians or comedians or whatever. But also just like having that space to express themselves, like having that confidence of being able to like, hey, I did this cool thing and now I can share it with you.
Mhm.
One of the conversations that we've had for a very long time, we want to do a youth Scranton Story Slam.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
That's been in the conversation for a long time. Some of it has been unfortunately like funding related, and then COVID,
Sure.
things like that. But being able to expand our youth programming is something that we would like to get back into doing now that like hopefully we're returning to a little bit more normal things.
Well, I can tell you, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing without my little background in theater when I was in school too. When I was young, in grade school, I really wanted to be involved in theater, and the school, despite being a Catholic school where my parents paid lots and lots of money, there was no theater program whatsoever, and there was this horrible thing called show choir. That was the worst thing ever for everybody involved. I don't know why parents, teachers, kids ever agreed to be a part of something as stupid and useless as show choir. But when I got to high school, I went to public school, thank God, and was able to go to get involved with theater right away. And I kind of forced myself into it. Like I felt like I've never done anything like this before. I'm a complete wallflower and I don't want to talk to people.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like inside, I felt like I had something to share or something to offer. And we just had a really great teacher there, Mrs. Palutis. And she would get it out of you. She really understood how to make you break you out of your shell and everything like that and give me that confidence. And so by the time it was my senior year, I got to be the lead in the play. And I got to sing and all that kind of stuff. And that just gave me so much confidence for the rest of my life. Like after that, I didn't really do a lot of theater. I always wanted to maybe just do like a local show at some point. It's trying to find the time is really to dedicate to something like that is tough. But that is what allows me to be able to talk to you guys right now on a camera and stuff like that. And it's still something I still get nervous. I still, I do the open mic on Tuesdays at the V Spot, and I still get a little of that, the jitters of getting in front of people and just, saying basic things, but at least I'm able to articulate and kind of move forward and do stuff like this. And I owe that all to, that little, just those couple of years of experience in theater.
I love that. Yeah, that's so great. Cause like when you see like the shy kid just like get that spark and be able to like go out and do something, we had, for a couple of years, we were doing a teen writing workshop. So the kids would write like one acts. One of them brought it to Edinburgh Fringe. Another one brought it to our Under Glass Festival. So like,
which venue?
The elevator one.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, that was from our teen
That's awesome.
Which is great. So now these kids, some of these kids are now published, have a production under their belt. We had one when we saw the full festival in 2019, did a full performance, and it was about something about like the dentist is dead. I can't really remember.
You tell me a venue.
But anyway, it was at Meals on Wheels.
Okay.
But it was, it's really great to give these kids the confidence and like the platform to be like, hey, you can do theater too.
Right. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I love that. And so there's plenty of opportunities for that this year. And the chicken has made a reappearance.
Yes, King Raymond.
Yeah,
love him.
Let's talk about him for a second. How did that I'm sure there's a lot of people who are like, I keep seeing this Fringe thing. Is this a chicken festival? Can I get?
It is a chicken festival. King Raymond runs the festival. You know the story of King Raymond.
So King Raymond, again, I think this is just like urban legend at this point. So during our very, very first festival in 2015, we had like this weird logo of like this guy with an egg head, and it was like kind of cracked. And then like, I'm not sure, like the next year someone like gave us a drawing of a chicken and put it in our guide, and we all just like were really into it and we really loved it. So King Raymond kind of just like, he's stuck. And we were having a conversation in the basement of the Scranton Cultural Center. And I don't remember who suggested it or who named him. But King Raymond is named for Raymond Hood, who is the person who designed the Scranton Cultural Center and like a lot of other buildings in New York and things like that. And we've had lots of different renditions of him throughout the years, but he's always dignified and he always has his crown on him.
And if you're on Instagram, you can look up Scranton Fringe for the stickers, and there are gifts of King Raymond as well. So
yeah, Dan made those for us. They're very fancy. We like them a lot. And yeah,
I'll put the poster up on the screen so you can see.
Yeah, please do.
He's neon this year.
He is neon this year. I'll be having the Sordoni Art Gallery is going to have a table at the preview party tomorrow, and I had my students make buttons. So we have King Raymond. I know it's tomorrow, Dan. We have King Raymond.
Sound system is in my trunk. That's why.
Oh no.
We're fine. It'll be ready.
But anyway, so my kids made buttons with King Raymond with our Sordoni logo brackets, and we'll be giving away those buttons for free. And let me tell you, they are now obsessed with Raymond. They are so excited. They're like, we love this chicken.
They have to make a new one for next year.
Yeah. Oh my god, yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah.
There you go.
And we'll see what the kids from the Lackawanna CTC are doing a poster design contest.
Oh.
So that's going to be displayed. Yeah.
I didn't see this. Never mind.
So it's going to be displayed first Friday, right?
I believe so.
And they're really great too.
I've seen like 4 or 5 of them,
so
and
fun.
Like I didn't realize they were high school students that created these. Like they are amazing. Yeah.
So they're doing that. I think there's going to be a contest, so people will be able to vote for them, and then we're going to print everyone's like the favorite. And like they also like leaned in hard on Raymond, and because I think it's just like he's so weird and interesting and cute, and we love him. And for years and years, I wanted him on a tote bag, and Liz finally put him on a tote bag for me a couple of years ago.
Nice.
We don't have tote bags. You have a tote bag.
I have a tote bag. It was a prototype.
Yeah.
So the Scranton Fringe Festival will host all kinds of theatrical shows at 7 venues throughout downtown Scranton on Thursday, September 29th, that's tomorrow, through Saturday, October 8th.
We'll be ready, I promise.
Dan works good under pressure.
You can visit scrantonfringe.org for more info, or grab one of these lovely guides. These are probably all over by now, right?
Downtown. They're in some places in downtown Wilkes-Barre. And you can pick them up anytime at our Fringe HQ, which is going to be at Meals on Wheels. So 541 Wyoming Avenue in downtown Scranton.
And tickets are still available online. So if you haven't bought a ticket yet, plenty of time to still do so.
Yeah, that's one of our fun new things this year is we have tickets available online in advance. We used to be cash only at the door, and we grew up. We're not doing that anymore. So you can buy your tickets in advance so you can plan out your schedule. Or you can still buy them at the door too. Like I'll be there. I'll be there taking.
I'll be making sure things are working.
And then this year, buttons are not required for the festival. So for this year, tickets will be generally $15 per show. Some things are priced a little bit differently. Like our late night events, I believe are going to be $10. But in the past, buttons have been required. This year, just with things with COVID and getting people back into it, we didn't want to complicate things too much, but buttons will still be available. You can buy them for $5. They support us. They allow us to keep having a festival. Our running joke is at the end of every festival. What are you guys doing next year? We don't know. We don't know if we're going to have one. We don't know. We need funding. We need time. We need, but then we all are like, we love Fringe so much. Let's do it again. So the buttons will be available, and we have some button partners that you'll be able to get some discounts at in downtown Scranton too.
Awesome. Is there anything else you guys want to plug about the festival or your particular professions in general before we get out of here?
Buy tickets, come on out, and it's fun. One thing I like about the festival is that it's very walkable. Like it's clustered. I think 4 or 5 of the venues are almost around the corner from one another. Yeah. And so when you're planning out and you're coming to the festival, it's not one of those where you got to hop in your car, unless you're me putting fires out, and drive all the way across Scranton to do things. It's a very walkable festival.
Yeah. And all the venues are on first floors. Everything's accessible. Because that's always been very important to us to make sure that people, can get there safely, can get there easily, and enjoy themselves and have a good time.
Yeah. So come on out. Look forward to seeing you.
It's gonna be good.
Awesome.
Yay, Fringe.
Yay, Fringe.
And thank you so much for tuning in to the show tonight. I hope you learned a little something. I think we had 1 or 2 quick comments. We had
it's kind of were fired.
All right. You guys forgot all of these things.
The Fringe Festival thanked NEPA Scene. They didn't thank you two yet. So I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And Rob Alapex says,
"Oh God,
Dan is no doubt the salt of the earth."
Thank you, Rob. Thank you.
So check out Park Multimedia as well, and the Sordoni Gallery at Wilkes University. And thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Johnny, for producing tonight. I know there was a little bit of a technical issue back there, but he handled it well. We got back into it.
Do you have a screen yet?
Only took it.
So this isn't actually ending.
Yeah, I'm literally. I think I'm just gonna pull the plug at the end and just assume that that's gonna shut everything. No, I can actually end the broadcast from my little laptop here, so I'm good.
Exactly. Till the computer works again.
You cannot leave.
No, I have to be in Scranton at noon tomorrow. I have a speaker, I have a sound system plug in.
So, but yeah, thank you again for joining us. And if you stuck around and watched this, we appreciate it. We would love for you to like and share. Fight those algorithms and actually get something good in people's feeds for once. Something positive going on in the community. We need more of that. So if you feel the same, make sure that you are liking and sharing and subscribing and all of those things. Press all the buttons in the bells and the icons and whatever you got to do to see this stuff. But we appreciate you tuning in and taking some time, and make sure you check out this festival. It's all over the next week, so there's a lot to see, a lot to do. You can go to scrantonfringe.org or pick up one of these guides around. Either way, you can find out about everything that's going on. But and thank you guys for coming on.
Thank you so much for having us.
You're very welcome, and we'll see you next Wednesday. Have a good night, everybody.